All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Freezin for NFC North Podcast, episode number 22, the NFC North 2022 NFL schedule release and predictions. How's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Doing
Doing
great.
good.
Getting closer day by day.
Day by day. And I am joined by, in the Lions corner, Mr. Grubb. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic, man. Glad to be here, ready to get this thing started.
Absolutely. And in the Vikings corner, Cooper, Uneducated Takes. How are you doing? Oh, we're still waiting for sound. We don't got sound.
Oh my goodness, I'm having
There
all
we
sorts
go.
of trouble today. That was a nice production switch there. That hot swap, that was lovely.
Gotta love
But
it.
yeah, I'm up here back with the Vikings, where hopefully they'll end up on top. Doing great, feeling good. Not thinking about football as much as I was a couple weeks ago, but it's still always there.
Oh, especially with the schedule release, lots to talk about. And we are joined by another Packers guest, Lane Hankins. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back here, guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, this is an interesting time to talk. Obviously, we've got the schedule release, all the excitement of all the predictions of how many wins and who's going to be a best team and all that. And so here on Freezin 4, we have to go ahead and go through the schedules, right? And Cooper, you suggested we kind of go with the team that maybe was the worst last year, right?
Worst is a subjective
I
term,
would
but the
say-
team that had the least amount of wins in the NFL.
I don't know. Every team in this division.
By
could
the
have
way,
the
very
least amount.
luckily.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, and what a perfect place to end up in the draft too for a draft pick
No,
to
it worked
fall.
out
But
well.
yeah. So let's do it then. Let's do it. Let's jump right in.
So yeah, obviously with the Lions, it's going to be an interesting schedule. With all their draft picks and everything, and there's a lot of hope. There's probably more hope for the Lions than there has been in a while. But when you look at this schedule, Grubb, how much hope are you seeing from the get go here?
Well, like I was just saying, before we came on, I have a lot of actual hope as I look at this schedule. Like I say, if you can pick out 9 winnable games here for the Lions. 9.
Dude, that's stretched. Look at that stretch, back a season stretch there. Bears, Giants, Bills mixed in for sure. Jaguars, Vikings, Jets, Panthers, Bears again. Yeah.
But even at the beginning, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see a lot of fear. Like the Eagles, yeah, I mean, maybe but again, there's nobody who strikes fear in you. And
they could pop.
Eagles, Commanders, Seahawks, right? Like all at home. I think they have a good chance there. At the Vikings, look, they played the Vikings tough twice last year. They should have easily swept the. I mean, they could have.
Jared Goff has only ever daggered the Vikings as a Lion. Every single time he's played the Vikings, he's daggered them. Once Kirk Cousins bailed us out, but the second time.
I see as they go into that bye week, week 6, they literally have a possibility of being 3-2 into that bye week, right? Mm-hmm. So coming out of that, then you have. I mean, they could win the Dolphins game. They could. I mean, at the Bears, you never know how the Bears are going to be by that time of the season, and at the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you look at this, there's 9 winnable games, right? In my opinion, you have Eagles, Commanders, Seahawks. Again, one of the Vikings games, possibly. One of the Bears games, possibly. The Dolphins, the Jets, the Panthers. I mean, there's winnable games on the schedule for the Lions. And if they play like they played last year, these teams that are on this schedule, some of these offenses have been porous. And so it gives them a chance to really have this division, like I said earlier before we came on air, it's going to come down to who wins in the division this year. It's not going to be one of those years where if you're sitting there at 3-3 in the division, you could be out of it. You could actually be in it by being 3-3 in the division this year because of everybody's schedule. So again, the Lions, do I think they're going to win the division? Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? Not necessarily, but if you look at this schedule, this is a better opportunity than they've had in a long time. If they play like they played last year, and they don't, again, last year they had probably 5 games that they should have won on top of the games they did win. So you look at this schedule, and you got to be excited if you're a Lions fan. The talent that's coming in, the coaching that's going on, and again, just to sit there and look at the schedule and go, yeah, I think they could actually pull out 9. Like, there's not very many seasons. You sit down at a Lions schedule and you go, there's 9 winnable games on there. Like, you just don't say that usually. You say maybe there's 5 winnable games and 3 possibilities of maybe we could go 8-8. Now we have an extra game, so now you say maybe we go 8-9. But this could be a 9-win season just looking at that, and you don't know how the season's going to break down for some of these other teams, injuries. Again, we don't know where the Bears are going to be at. We don't know where the Vikings are going to be at. Everybody's excited. Yeah, the Vikings have the talent. And again, we definitely don't know where the Packers are going to be. So this division is more up in the air than it's ever been in the past. Do I still think Green Bay has the best chance with Aaron Rodgers? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that this is the first season in a long, long time that the Lions, you could actually say they have a chance. And before, it's just kind of like, hey, what pick in the top 7 are the Lions going to have this year? That's what you kind of look at each year, right? And so now this year, it's just kind of exciting for these guys, and it's exciting for a fan base that kind of deserves it after a long, long lull.
I was going to tell you what, I think that the first 5 weeks are going to be really important to see where they go into the bye week. Because, coming out of I would look at the schedule and I would say I'm higher on the Eagles than a lot of people. And now they added James Bradbury to the defense, A.J. Brown. So that's going to be tough. The Commanders, I do think the Lions are going to win that one. Maybe the Vikings, definitely Seahawks, right? So if they're in Patriots, that's at Patriots is going to be tough. So I mean, if they're 2-3, that's got to be tough. They almost need to be at least 3-2 going to the bye.
Which means they have to beat one of the Eagles, Seahawks, or Eagles, Patriots, and Vikings, pretty much, right? And
and that's what I said.
They're coin flips. Yeah,
that's a possibility in there, and that's what I'm saying. That before you just go, you look at this, and previously in years, you look at this and you said, all right, if you looked at that, let's just say over the past 5 years, if you looked at that schedule in the first half there, you'd go, oh, Lions are going to be 0-6, all the way to the Cowboys, right? 0-6, and maybe their first possible win is the Dolphins, and then they play the Packers though, and then so you're looking at them being like 1 or 2 and 9 going out of the start, but that's not what you're looking at this year. It's a different season for them, so it's exciting and it's just good to have. Again, we don't know what the Eagles are going to put on board. Hurts he's been an up and down quarterback. So one game he looks okay, and then one game he looks terrible, and then one game he uses his legs and goes for 140 yards, and they win by a field goal. Like that's the Eagles. That's what they've looked like with him under center. So to start out the season that way in Detroit, I mean, we'll see, but I think they could get one of those games.
And if you have Aiden Hutchinson now, that could, limit, what Jalen Hurts does. But, if they go 2-3, I mean, coming out of the bye, that could be a really rough stretch. And then they go lose 3 in a row, right? And then they're 2-6, and the Bears at Chicago. I mean, that would almost be a must win to turn their season around. So they're like 2-6. And then if they beat the Bears 3-6, Giants 4-6, Bills, they're not going to win 4-7. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe Jaguars. I mean, that's
W in my book right now. But I mean, one of these teams could pop up, right? And that's kind of the thing is like, one of the Jets, Jaguars, and Panthers could actually be good. Right. Just like I'm fairly certain that one of the Cowboys, Dolphins, or Commanders are going to be bad. One of them, just based on like, they can't have all gotten it right, like they're kind of like they're kind of a volatile franchises lately.
Well, that's what we were saying. You got this is going to be an important start to the season for the Lions, much more than it has been in the past. They have to start out strong, but they have a schedule to do that. They actually have a schedule, and even if they got a sneaky win in there, and all of a sudden you're 4-1, like that would be incredible, right? But it could happen. It's not a hey, this isn't going to happen type of season for them. So they could either go under, but they could actually, be floating high on top going into that bye week. You just don't know. And like I say, this division's going to come down to.
Okay, so we picking this bad boy or what though? Wait a second.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and throw
week one Eagles. Week one Eagles. Grubb.
Oh, I'm going to say that's
No,
a
just
loss.
Grubb. Oh,
Oh,
you're
Grubb.
gonna say
okay.
that. Oh, never.
Yeah,
I'm
look,
sorry. No.
I'm telling you, I have them
I'm sorry.
3-2 right now. My wins are over the Eagles, over the Commanders, and over the Seahawks. And I think they sneakily lose
3-2.
close at Minnesota, and they lose. Probably won't be such a great game. New England's such a tough
Goff
place to
ain't
play.
Goff ain't going in there.
I don't think the Lions are set to play in that place yet. I don't think the Patriots are all that great offensively, but I just don't think the Lions stand a chance in New England. If it was in Detroit, I might say there was a better chance. But so that's my three. I see Eagles, Commanders, and Seahawks. I just think that they get those. They lose their road games and they win their home games. And they come out and they lose to the Cowboys. And like I said, I think they could actually beat the Dolphins in Detroit. They lose to the Packers, and then that Bears game is a toss-up game. So the Giants game, they should win that game. I don't care if it's in New York.
Yeah. I think so. I think so. Even in the Meadowlands.
Bills, they lose. Jaguars, they should win that game. Vikings, they could sneak that one in Detroit again this year. But at the Jets, at the Panthers, and Bears and Bears at home to finish that off. Again, that's 9 wins I count right there. And I think they lose, obviously, in Green Bay in the last part of the season. But, again, you could have a 9-win team here, and I don't think that makes the playoffs now with having these many games in there. I think you got to have 10 wins to get into the playoffs. But it's going to be one of those seasons that the Lions can pull this out.
Okay, so are you calling? You're calling 9-8.
I'm calling 9-8.
Yeah, that's a totally reasonable pick. Probably only a few above Vegas, if I had to guess.
And again, that's what I say. They lose a few. 2 of these they lose that they should win, and 2 of them they win that they should lose. I mean, or 1 and back and forth. So you end up, 7 to 9 wins for the Lions. You look at that schedule. 7 to 9 wins is very reasonable thought process out of that. Now 9 is obviously sky high. That's what I'm picking. Right? That's to me that's the ceiling of picks. So 9 wins for them. But 7 to 9 in there, I think that's where they land this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would say I was going to say 8, but that's almost 7 to 9 wins. That really is almost a step forward for this franchise, isn't it?
Huge. It's a huge step. I mean, again, we're always talking about where are they going to be in the top 5 picks, right? 1 through 5. Like the Lions have been, at best, top 7 picks. So to even say that, to have a Lions team and have a schedule that says, hey, you could actually win 9 games is absolutely crazy, actually, for a long time. It just hasn't been that good for a long time. Even with Stafford there, even when he had him and Calvin, he just didn't have a whole mixture of a team. The defense was either bad. There was no running game. There was never a mix. It was just the 2 guys trying to make everything happen. And you looked at schedules and you went, it's just tough for the Lions. And now, again, very young talent, young defense, and they were very well coached last year. You got to give Dan Campbell hats off. They were just very well coached. And if they come out again this year that way and they come with that chip on their shoulder, again, some of these games they might sneak a win in that they might not have in previous seasons.
Tell you what, you look at this season, almost as a little like a snowball rolling down a hill, right? And gathering momentum. And what would happen, Lane, if the Lions beat the Packers in that first game?
In that first game, I think that would be a huge tone setter for both seasons. Lions obviously go with the better trajectory there if they were to pull that win off. And then a very questionable one for the Packers at that point, too, because then what's going on with their season? What's not working for them? Because, to be honest, they should be able to go into Detroit and beat the Lions without any problems. But if they somehow lose that game, then I think that's more looking to what's wrong with Green Bay than what's going right with Detroit. Because then obviously everybody's going to be thinking, oh, Detroit's doing great right now. Then if that's what's happening, we don't have to worry about them. They're just going to keep rolling. But if Green Bay loses that game earlier on in the season, I guess that's around the halfway point. But still, I think then we're looking at, does Green Bay win the division? Do they even go to the playoffs, if we're being honest?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, those division, like I said, the division games are going to be much more important inside this division than they have been in the past, right? Usually the Packers could kind of roll through some of these games, and but this year it's going to be the division games are going to be super important this year.
So Lions were thinking 7-9 wins. Are you Cooper and Lane? Are you in on that too?
I would probably put the win total at like either 6.5 or 7.5 would be where I put it. But I would not be surprised. Like, right, there's a lot that we don't know in May, and I would not be surprised in the least if the Lions even finish second in the division. Right, it wouldn't shock me at all. Right, because there's so much variance. There's so much variance on their schedule too. Right. One of those teams is going to pop off, and probably one of them is going to fall off. So it's really hard to say. But I think I wouldn't be surprised. I'm talked into 9 a little bit. Like I came in at 6.5, and now I'm at 7.5. Right, so you brought me over a bit.
Where are you at, Lane, on that?
Well, I'll be honest. I think I went a little harsh on the other members of the division because I've got a whole list right here of what I think is wins and losses. I have the Lions at 6-11, but there are several games on there that I think are toss-ups that could go either way. And obviously we have to wait and see. I mean, the Lions have some new shiny toys, Aiden Hutchinson and Jameson Williams, but so does everybody else. So I have them doing better at the end of the season when Jameson Williams is able to come back and play. A little bit of spark plug for that offense, but I could definitely see kind of a peak being that 8 or 9 game wins.
When was he injured? When did he injure that ACL? I didn't know was it late in the season?
I think it was like halfway through Alabama's season.
Through? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I don't remember between John Mechie and Mechie and Williams. I don't remember which one got hurt when.
I thought Williams was during the championship game, actually.
Williams was during the championship game.
Okay. Well, they have. So that's interesting. He could be out. That's a risky pick then.
Some time.
Yeah.
But they still the way their offense was looking last year. I'm on Ross St. Brown, right? So and like these guys they looked a lot better at the end of the season with that offense and having some creativity and using him. So they have a chance regardless. And I think they added a little bit regardless of Williams being out there to their receiver core. They've got some guys that can push the field deep to help St. Brown underneath and all that stuff. So I think it can happen, but we'll see.
Well, speaking of we'll see, and you're telling me there's a chance. Moving on to the Bears' schedule for this year.
Let's see. Oh man, tough start.
Yes, Niners at Packers, Texans. I see them being 0-2. Obviously, going into that Texans game, I don't see them. Starting off, it will be interesting to see, who the Niners have with Trey Lance. They would have a chance, I think, if Trey Lance does not, perform up to par, and obviously you're hearing that maybe he's not ready, and there's just a lot of things about that. But what do you guys think?
With the first 2 games?
Yeah,
probably loss. It almost doesn't, right? And honestly, I would pick the Vikings loss here too, because it almost doesn't matter, because you're going to get ground down out there in San Francisco, right? Even if Trey Lance isn't good, even if Jimmy G's at quarterback, like they're just going to grind it down. Like there's the defensive line. You don't think so?
I think that if Jimmy G plays, they're a better team.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, even better.
I just think. I would like Trey Lance. If I'm a Bears fan and I want to start out 1-1, I would actually hope for Trey Lance to
throw it for you.
Even if he's ready to play, he hasn't had much experience on the field, so you could actually give that as a toss-up game if he starts. And they've lost, some guys there in San Francisco that kind of help that team get along. So we'll see, coaches and all that. So. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of it could happen. That's a game. I think if Jimmy G plays, they're a stronger team at that point at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Than if Trey Lance plays. So
I'm going to ask a stupid question here, Lane. Are you at all worried about the Bears coming into Lambeau and snatching Aaron Rodgers' heart back?
I just hope they don't snatch his collarbone.
Yeah.
That's one of the only things you have to worry about, I would think, from a Packers perspective with the Bears, is if something happens to Aaron Rodgers or one of the other major contributors, like maybe Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon. But otherwise, no, I can see that as back-to-back losses for the Bears. And I was working in North Dakota when Trey Lance was at North Dakota State, so I got to see a lot of him. I don't think he's going to be as bad as you guys think. If he gets rolling and actually gets his chance to make an impact with that team, because they had Jimmy G solidified as the starter, and he was kind of the gimmick guy going in and out every now and then. If he gets in and gets his chance and gets rolling, Trey Lance is a threat.
Yeah, especially with that play caller.
I don't think that he's not a threat. I just think as far as having a solid team, who's a quarterback who's not going to make rookie mistakes, I think he'll have a lot of rookie mistakes early in the season. I just think he's not as strong of a starter week 1 as Jimmy Garoppolo would be. Now, by week 5, 6, 7, then we're talking difference, or he's got some games under his belt. But yeah, no, he's definitely a special talent. There was a reason they traded up where they traded up to get him. So he is a special talent. It's just I think he's going to take a little time at the beginning of the season to be ready in some of these games. It's nerves, and especially if they're playing in Chicago on that first weekend. That's a different game. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look at the schedule. So I do see there's a loss. Niners lost to the at Lambeau. I do see the Bears beating the Texans and Giants, so them being 2-2. You guys, So I mean
the Texans, I think, are going to be better than most people think they will be. But I have no problem you calling that a win at home.
Right.
Against Davis Mills. Yeah.
So 2-2. I see the Vikings beating. I see the Vikings beating the Bears. So I see them being 2-3 there. The Commanders. What do you think, Cooper? I mean, it is in Minnesota, that one.
Against the Vikings? Yeah, probably. I have a hard time unless Fields has quickened in his processing and just overall play. I don't think he's going to hold up against that. I don't think the Bears offense is going to hold up against an early season Vikings pass rush. Right now, you catch him in week 18 when everyone's on the IR, maybe, but you catch him early, and while they're kicking. When Danielle Hunter was on the field last year, the Vikings easily led the league in sacks, right? And now adding Zadarius Smith, and who knows how much juice he has left. But if they're both cooking, this team's probably going to lead the league in sacks. Like it's and especially against against like a weaker, against Dakota Dozier, like Zadarius Smith is going to come inside and banish him. Right?
I agree. So
he's done it before. Zadarius Smith has won games against better teams at the time, right? The Vikings have held Aaron Rodgers to not very good games, 3 interceptions, but it doesn't matter because Zadarius Smith was against Dakota Dozier. That's already happened.
Not looking forward to that.
So for that reason, that's Vikings.
Look at the Commanders game. I'm just not sure what to think of Wentz. I'm not scared of Wentz. I'm a little bit scared of the defense, if they, actually perform up to par, but I don't know. We'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and say that one is a win, 3-3. And then we go at Patriots. I don't see them, beating up Patriots in New England, 3-4.
Absolutely shocked. Yeah. If with that offensive line went into Bill Belichick's house and did that. Yeah.
Well, and I don't even see him going into Jerry's house and winning either. So 3-5.
Yeah. And Dolphins, you never know. Dolphins could be bad. We don't know. They could be bad.
I don't think so. I think
think they'll be bad, but they could be bad, and everyone should accept that possibility.
So I'm thinking 3-6 so far. I'm actually going to give. I'm going to take the home one with the Lions because it's home. So 4-6. At the Falcons is interesting because
it's gettable.
It is. I'm not going to say they win it though, so I'm saying 4-7. The Jets. It's at the Jets. The Jets could be much improved. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that's a loss. I'm going to go 4-8. And
Yeah, we're just hoping here.
No, I mean,
I'm honest,
not
pessimistic.
disagreed once. I've not disagreed once so far. So, and like some of them are on the fence for sure, but you're not out of bounds at all here.
And when I go to the Packers,
Week 14
you know,
oh my god,
I know. What do I got? 4-8. And I think the Packers are going to obviously win there. So is that 4-9 so far? Yeah, and they're obviously not going to lose against the in the bye, right?
I hope not.
So we'll count that as a win.
Count that as I'm high on the Eagles, so I'm going to say Bears lose 4-10.
Eagles, Bills,
4-11.
Oh my God.
I'm saying the Lions at home, 4-12, and
then finish it off with the Vikings choking to miss the playoffs.
Oh, right, and
with the Bears.
I'm gonna say 5-12. So
5-12. Where were the victories over? Where were the victories? One more time. 5-12.
So I have
what's the call here?
I have the Texans, Giants, Commanders, and what was the other one? The Lions,
once, and Jets.
Lions,
the Lions,
and then the
in
Vikings.
Chicago.
Yes,
the Vikings in Chicago.
So I have them.
Lost to the Jets,
So I have them 5 wins, and I know there's a lot of people like on Bears Twitter like, oh, the Bears have 14 winnable games, and I just
someone posted 11 wins today on a graphic. They made a graphic, put it out with 11 wins on it.
I would love it, right? Yeah. But they're just not ready. If I'm being honest, if as Bears fans were being honest, there's so many holes to fill. I'm glad they did what they did in the secondary in the draft to take care of that. They really needed to. I mean, you can see that on tape. What do you guys think? What do you think, Lane, when you see kind of this? What's your schedule breakdown for the Bears look like?
Well, I will say it's always good to think they're not going to do as well and then maybe potentially surprise yourself. I have them at 6-11. And of course, I'm kind of on the same path as you with losing the first two, then winning the next two. And then I have them splitting with the Vikings, losing at Minnesota, but winning in Chicago against the Vikings. That Commanders game's a toss-up because, like you said, we don't know what Wentz can do. Wentz loses games himself by playing hero ball, so who knows how many turnovers he'll have. That could help decide that game. Patriots, Cowboys lost. The Dolphins, that one I don't know because the Dolphins, like 1 week they're good and look undefeatable, and then the next week it's like, what are they doing? So I have them beating the Dolphins, beating the Lions at home, beating the Falcons. I think that one could be a weird game though, because I honestly have no idea what the Falcons have outside of Kyle Pitts. Because with Mariota there now and Desmond Ridder, who knows what they have at quarterback. But then a string of losses at the Jets, Packers, Eagles, Bills, at Detroit, and then finishing off with a win against Minnesota at home.
That does always seem to happen, actually. So
yeah, no, it did. It does. Yeah,
it's not last year, but
no, but who cares? Honestly, what happened last year between the Bears and Vikings?
What about you, Grubb? How many wins do you think you were you kind of similar to me and Lane?
Yeah, I would agree more with Lane. I don't think they were going to be as bad as 4. Looking at that schedule, like I say, I think they sneak in some of these that might not be picked out there. Again, the Falcons game, at the Jets game, those are winnable games. Like Lane said, the Falcons game, that could go either way. We have no idea what the Falcons are going to offer as far as a competitive team this year. You never know. Mariota, he's looked good at times. He came in Oakland, so I think he's learned a lot sitting on the bench. So if he comes out and has a really good season by that time, I mean, the Falcons might look good with some of that offense that they have going on there with him and Pitts and.
I don't want to lose here the Cordell Patterson revenge game. So
yeah, it is true.
Oh, big time.
And he proved
he's got 2 of those.
With Mariota, you might see a totally different schemed offense going on there with those guys. So it could be actually pretty interesting, but who knows? We don't know when we're going to get there. I still think, I know you're real strong on the Eagles, but I'm not. I don't see I see a team there that's going to get some wins, obviously, but I think that's a winnable game. So like I say, some of these games, so I could see 5, 6, 7 wins for the Bears. And some of, like I say, there's a lot of, I think the 4 that you went into, I think they can definitely win. And I think there's 4 other games on that schedule that they could possibly win. So, again, we're looking anywhere from 4 to 8 wins. Not saying that those 4 they should win, but they have possibilities to win.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that playing the Bills, that's.
I was just wanted to talk about that actually, and Steve-O just said something too, and I was thinking about this as we were talking. I was like, man, Bills could melt down that game. Like we've seen it happen, and it's like I almost want to make that. I almost wanted to switch up my picks and still say 5-12, but maybe
a lot of times
I think a loss to the Texans, but a win with the Bills.
It totally could happen. When you look at the Bears, like there are so many different outcomes, depending on the offense, depending on, Justin Fields' development and all of that. Obviously they're not going to be playoff or Super Bowl contenders, but there are a lot of different outcomes kind of in between, and I'm okay with the 4 wins if it means a better, draft position, more draft capital, because then we can fill holes and things like that. So like I'm not
like the plan, right? That would be according to plan. If they got 4 wins, I think that would be Ryan's pace, what he was attempting to do based on the decisions he's made. So
you didn't just say that. You just said Ryan's pace.
Oh, I said Ryan's pace. No,
well, it would be Ryan's.
Let's not.
Ryan's
no, he's not
Bulls
that.
pace.
Bulls. I got him conflated. Yeah. Yeah, that would be the goal, right? I think the goal was like, let's win 4 or 5, maybe 6 games if we're feeling scrappy when Poles executed the offseason plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, moving on to hopefully brighter days ahead for the Vikings.
Some say. Some
may be sitting right here as well. But when we look at the first game, I mean, what are you looking at that?
W.
Cooper?
It's a W. Kirk plays really good in Philadelphia. Go back and watch some of the games. And that was when Kirk Cousins first came to Minnesota, and I had yet made up my mind that I don't want him to be here anymore. He had a really good game at Eagles at Philadelphia, and I was like, oh, that's cool. We don't usually do that. And then he did it again, right? A couple of years later. And I look back at it, and he plays pretty well in Philadelphia. If Kirk Cousins is playing well, it's a really good football team, right? And like it's just kind of the way it's going to be this year. And sometimes he'll be up, sometimes he'll be down. But I like him at Philadelphia. I've seen it in the past, and maybe that's an oversimplification of breaking it down. But I think that's a W.
So that's actually week 2. What about week 1 versus the Packers?
Wow, look at me. At home,
you're looking beyond the Packers.
I'm looking, fixed on the horizon. Oh boy, yeah. And I go back and forth on this one. I'm gonna call that a loss. Yeah, at home opener, and not because this has happened in the past too, and Kirk played terribly. But his first home game in TCF, but. Yeah, this is a brand new defensive scheme. Like, there's nothing about this that's similar. The offense is great, yeah, and maybe they'll blow up, and it's a winnable game. It's definitely a winnable game, but I'm gonna call that a loss. Week 1 against we have a lot of question marks at the quarterback position, and we've addressed the secondary of the Vikings have very well this offseason, but that's on paper, and that's what the draft is for, and that's what draft season is for, is being like, hey, this could work, but like then you get to week 1, you're like, this is probably not going to work, is it, guys? Right? And so I think Aaron Rodgers tears apart a secondary that's both young and uncohesive and playing a system that they haven't played for a while.
So 1-1 moving into the Lions game.
Yeah, last year, it's still a win.
All right.
Last year, I think it's a win. We have flushed that. That's one of the things that I hope, like, the Zimmer era was flushed out with the Zimmer era. Like, I'm not extremely confident that the Vikings actually improved their situation at coach and front office, right? I'd like to think so. And, like, yeah, they're really positive people, and it sounds great, but, like, we haven't seen anything actually happen. And Zimmer fell off at the end, but he was pretty good for a while, right? So it's like, okay, you had kind of a league average coach who took like terrible defensive personnel and almost led the league in sacks and was really good on third down, right? Stuff like that, right? Then that's value, and we're not sure that Kevin O'Connell is going to provide more value. We hope he will. But I think the negative stuff, like the meltdowns and the inability to put points on the board when you need to, I think that is what's been flushed away, and that's what killed us against Detroit. So I'm going to call that W.
So 2-1 at Saints. This is kind of an interesting one with, especially all the offensive players the Saints have been loading up with, and defensive. I mean, that's going to be a tough game, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a real test of the offensive line that's supposed to be good. We will believe it when we see it that the Vikings offensive line is actually a positive. But people look, the personnel, there's cohesion there. They've been together for a while. They've run a similar system. This one's not as more of an inside zone than an outside zone, probably, that the Vikings are going to be running this year. But there's only one real gap that needed to be filled because Garrett Bradbury was always going to be the center, unfortunately. And they brought in a lot of solid vets to fill that gap at right, left guard, depending on how we move around. But yeah, so that's the test for it. I think the Vikings defense would be fine against the Saints. I'm not terribly oh, you drafted a rookie wide receiver. Well, how many times has that won you a game week 4, right? Yeah.
Well, and they got Landry now too, right?
Yeah, Landry's fine.
And Thomas, if he's healthy too. Kamara will be
2.5 years ago. Yeah,
that's
and
true.
Kamara did tear us up, and that's the main reason the Vikings lost the last time. I'll take the Saints in this one though, but that's a coin flip.
So we are at,
and they're at Bears
2-2, right? Okay,
2-2, and now it's pressure's on, right? You gonna make a playoff push or not? I feel like the Vikings are always in this position. It's a victory over the Bears though. It's they don't have the defense anymore to really threaten to dismantle the Vikings like they did in the past. That's the trump card. This is the card we play. It's that Kirk Cousins does not have any time to play football because we have a bunch of werewolves on the defensive line, right? And that's not a trump card they can play anymore. So that's a Vikings win at home for sure. And then what are we at now? So okay, we're back above water here. We're back
3-2,
in the black.
yes.
At Dolphins.
Yeah.
And remember, I've been kind of talking down on the Dolphins a little bit. And this is a game the Vikings lose, though. I can feel it in my soul. And the Saints is in London. I forgot to mention that. Anyway. This is a game the Vikings lose on the road. A winnable, volatile team is going to find a way to pull this game out. It's going to be close. It's going to be wacky. Vikings are going to lose by 3 or less.
Yeah.
into the bye week, out to the Cardinals, who kind of disappointing the last couple of years, to be honest. Vikings have played them really well. Vikes 8-9 wins, so I think he's just riding the Vegas line right there.
Snap,
Oh, except for the Packers. I think the Packers are higher.
10-11,
yeah. Snap man might not. I mean, that's a very safe prediction right there. Yeah. Fair enough.
It's smooth here too. So going to the bye, so 3-3. So coming out of the bye, then they have another
Cardinals
tough...
at home.
Yeah.
Shootout. That's a dub. I think that's a win.
Really?
We barely. I mean, the Vikings outplayed the Cardinals last year. Their defense doesn't have threats to Kirk Cousins like that. I'm really afraid of. They got a lot of linebackers that are pretty physically imposing and can stir stuff up. But I don't see that causing a massive problem. Dalvin Cook cut them up last year, and I haven't followed them closely. I don't think they've improved where it would count for that, right? They already had the line stacked with linebackers, and their defensive line was pretty mediocre. So yeah, I'm going to call that a win. Dalvin Cook goes off, Kirk Cousins goes off. It's at home this time. That's the difference. One missed field goal. That's what it was last year. At Commanders, Kirk revenge game. Was that okay?
So 4-3.
4-3, and here we go. We're going to start to cook, and they're going to win this game. They're going to win the game with Commanders. I don't believe in the Commanders. They could be fine. Their defense seems like it could be pretty good. Carson Wentz will drag you to a few wins and has. I think Grubb mentioned he'll drag you down from a few too.
That almost seems like it would be a game that would be depending on exactly kind of when it's at, that it would be like one of those rainy games. It's like,
Yeah.
at
November
in
or
Washington, and then it's like 7-5 or something like that, and like no one could like.
And Wentz throws a pass backwards out of the end zone for a safety to lose the game. I mean, by one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Kirk gets the W back in his old home. Bills, that's just gonna have to be. I'm not gonna call any edgy upsets here. That's a loss. That team
5-4 so far.
Good enough. What's that? What are we at now?
5-4.
5-4. This is exactly where they're going to be all season. They're going to be chasing that white rabbit, and they're never going to quite catch it.
Yeah, the Cowboys, Patriots. I mean, they could go underwater there.
Yeah, right. I mean, this stretch coming up here. This is the stretch. If you go Cardinals, Commanders, Bills, Cowboys, Patriots, the Vikings could absolutely lose every one of those games. Absolutely. They probably won't. But every single one of these, I'm like, I could blow that. And with the Bills and Patriots, like, oh man, Belichick just always dominates us. But it is at home. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah, Cowboys at home.
That's a chance.
Yeah, I think we have a chance against the Patriots this year, because normally we go to Foxborough and get just dominated mentally by Bill Belichick. Just like stands over there.
So Cowboys is a win,
but Cowboys at home. We have to avenge the Cooper Rush game. This team is good. This team is going to want blood for that. Right? You have to. I think this one's on a holiday, maybe. No, which one is on a holiday? There's one that's on. No, I don't think it's this one. But yeah, I think the Vikings win. I think it's more of a shootout. Hopefully Dak plays. Hopefully it's more fun of a game either way. And so we're back up above right now, aren't we?
6-4, right?
6-4. Big game against the Patriots. Consolidate. Can you consolidate on your success? Nope. They're going to lose to the Patriots at home, and they're going to drop back down to 6-5. Jets. Ooh, I really want to give this to the Jets. I really want to give this to the Jets, but I'm not. Vikings at home. Vikings at home for sure.
7-5.
And then Vikings at Lions too. I'm taking it.
Oh,
yeah, I'm taking the sweep. I'm taking the sweep. Everyone's high on the Lions, but the Vikings have made what?
Sure.
If the Vikings could put up any points at all last year, it wouldn't have been anyway. Sorry.
So we're 8-5 right now, right?
8-5 right now,
8-5.
and the Colts are built just right to beat the Vikings. Even I'm not a huge believer in them, but this is the kind of team that does it.
But they traded for Carson Wentz, who can't run.
Or Matt Ryan. They got Matt Ryan. I mean,
Matt Ryan is good enough.
He's Carson Wentz, but he can't run. So I mean, I don't see how he's different from Carson Wentz. I mean, when the Falcons really needed it, he does the same thing Wentz does. So
it's fair enough. It's not gonna. I'm not high on the Colts by any means, but it's just the kind of team that beats us. A team that's gonna dominate on the ground a little bit. They're gonna win in the trenches, and that's just gonna be what it takes. I've seen it happen too many times. And one of these teams is just gonna unexpectedly just have a dominant performance by their defensive line. I
think the law firm of Pittman and Pierce are going to beat Colts, or are going to beat the Vikings. So
yeah, there you go. I don't get it, but it sounded funny.
Alec Pierce, Michael. I'm trying to make it a reality. Trying to
bring it
names
to the viewers.
Yes.
Yeah, I am very dry sometimes. But
so 8-6.
The Vikings. Yeah, so we're 8-6 or 9-6 now.
8-6. Yes, going to the Giants game, right?
Going to the Giants, and Vikings are going to win that game. Go to 9-6. Here we are on the doorstep. Yeah, no respect for the Giants yet. Until I get rid of Daniel Jones. What the hell are you doing? You get nothing. And so here we go. Ooh, end of season. Look at this. Poised. We're in the hunt graphic. I bet we're solidly in the hunt graphic, right? There's probably a couple teams below us. You know what I mean? Like some Commanders, probably the Colts. That's the division. Anyway, so solidly in the hunt. Can bring this home. Will not bring it home.
I knew you were going to.
They will not bring it home at Green Bay, and then they're going to slip. That's that late season game like that. I can't pick the Vikings for that. Which is interesting because that's the season sweep, I think. I didn't. Yeah, I picked Packers to win week 1. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think the Vikings. I just don't think it's ever a good bet to like on an individual game basis. Anyway, to say that the Vikings are going to beat the Packers, it just doesn't happen as often as they lose.
So then it comes down to the Bears. Maybe.
Oh,
to
absolutely,
get in the playoffs?
Absolutely. And everyone's like, okay, it's okay, Vikings, it's okay. Because we can play the Bears, and there's going to be a thing where it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. We didn't need to win that game. We can play the Bears, and we're going to lose to the Bears.
Oh, wow.
As well.
Well, it is at Chicago. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, to the Bears in Chicago in a must-win game.
So we go 9-8.
That's 9-8.
Yep. Poised to go 11-6, but choke it away at the end for a 9-8. We're gonna beat the Vegas over, so we're gonna beat the Vegas line, so it'll be positive. But yeah, 9-8, and that's how it's gonna go down, and everyone's gonna be pissed.
Lane, what do you have the win total for the Vikings being this year?
I thought I went harsh on the other teams in the division, but it seems like you guys are right about the same win-loss ratio as I am, because I have them at 8-9 too. I think that Packers game at the beginning of the season is going to be an interesting one because it's in Minnesota, and while the Vikings have a lot of things to figure out, I think Green Bay does too, because Matt LaFleur has hinted that offense is going to be more run-based this year, obviously with the loss of Devontae Adams and trying to figure out that receiving core. So that'll be the first game trying to figure that out, as well as the offensive line, because we'd like to think that Bakhtiari is going to be back and just fine at left tackle. But after last year, a lot of people are unsure right now. Same thing with right tackle. They lost Billy Turner, and they didn't re-sign Dennis Kelly, so what are they going to do there? There's questions there for the offense, and that'll be the kind of figure-it-out game. So that one could be a very close game, and I think could go either way, but I did have the Vikings.
It really could, yeah. Yeah, no, and I agree, and I said it for other games, but yeah, like Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter could win that game pretty easily.
And so we know Zadarius is going to be on that revenge tour for that game.
Yeah.
So
and who knows how long he's going to go for? Yeah, exactly. He'll be on the revenge tour, and he signed a very cheap contract, so I'm not sure how long he's going to be playing.
Yeah. And while the Vikings at home will always play up the whole we're in the North, it's cold and everything, that they're not going to do that, or they're not going to do the same thing at the Packers in December. That might even be a January game. I don't remember. It's at the end of the year. So they'll lose that one. So it's not going to be a clean sweep either way. But yeah, then the Eagles, I'm kind of high on the Eagles as well. So I have a loss to the Eagles, beating the Lions because I think they're pissed off from last year, giving the Lions their first win. So I don't think they're going to beat the Lions there. A loss at the Saints, even though, like you said, that's in London. A win against the Bears at home. I have them splitting that one, though, and losing to the Bears at the end of the year. And then, the kind of the toss-ups again with the Dolphins and the Cardinals. I said screw it, and I had them losing both of those games because that's still the area where the Cardinals are playing good towards the middle of the season before they start to collapse. And that's maybe the Dolphins have one of those crazy games where they seem to be really good.
I guarantee that will be a crazy game. I guarantee that Vikings-Dolphins will be crazy, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, down there in Miami too, so why not have some fun on Vice City? And then at the Commanders, a win, loss at the Bills, and then to surprise you, win against the Cowboys, win against the Patriots, win against the Jets, and win at the Lions.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why. I just feel like they're going to surprise, and like the Vikings do, they'll just randomly win a string of games, and it's like, what's happening here? Are the Vikings in it? Are they in the playoffs?
Well, at that point they'll be looking like they're the top of the division. That's how they
right, and there'll be some hot takes thrown around.
Oh yeah, Vikings Twitter will be out there telling us all how they're going to. This is it. This is the season.
This is the one. It was Kevin O'Connell. It was all that Zimmer's fault.
Snapman thinks Eagles are going to be dope. They win the division. They win the NFC East and NFC North as well. The Eagles are going to be that good. They win 2 divisions this year.
Well, they have the chance to beat us all.
But then we'll have the Vikings crashing back to reality and losing against the Colts. They'll win against the Giants because, like you said, Daniel Jones and the Giants, really. But then losing at the Packers and at the Bears to finish the season.
So you had
Pretty
8
similar.
wins.
Yeah.
Grubb, how many wins do you have for the Vikings?
Yeah, I would go along with that. I mean, the 9 wins, but the funny part is if you look at that first part of the schedule, and everybody, I know we went through this, but they could actually be 6-1 there. They really could. Here we are. We were talking about the Lions. The Vikings, if they play well through those to the bye week and to the Cardinals, could actually be 6-1, and so they could have this really extraordinary start to the season. Looking at that schedule, does that mean it's going to happen? Probably not, but they actually have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
If we look at that schedule to go,
and I'm actually glad
Vikings
we got
could
the
really
Packers week 1 too.
And
I'm
so
glad it's week 1.
if they go through that stretch, and then they enter that second stretch there, right, where we just talked about where Lane said they could go on a 4 or 5 game win streak. I mean, they could actually enter that 4 or 5 game win. They could actually have 10 or 11 wins early in the season, and then it would take a really good choke job at the end of the season to blow it. But if they start out strong during the first part of the season, right, even if they win or lose the Packers game, they could easily have 5 to 6 wins there off of that first part of the schedule, and they would have a really good chance at being a top team in the NFL if they do that. And that's why when I looked at this schedule, and I told you guys last week, I have the Vikings as this really good contender in the division just because of the way the schedule sets up as well. Like you look at this schedule.
It's an easy schedule. It's the easiest we've had in years for sure.
Yeah, and that's how this whole division is, right? So it's like
everyone
the
does.
Lions could surprise, the Vikings could surprise, and if the Packers and Aaron Rodgers then they could dominate this outside the division schedule. And so it's just going to be really interesting because if the Lions sneak a couple division wins or the Vikings sneak a couple division wins, like over the Packers in one of those games, and all of a sudden here are the Vikings at the end of the season sitting at the top of the division just because of what's happened inside the division this season. Whereas in seasons past, it's the Packers dominate the division, and it's been up to other teams in this division to make the playoffs by beating outside the division, right? Winning games outside the division because the Packers are going to dominate and win inside the division. So now this year you have a little bit of toss-up, and the Vikings, they sneak a couple wins in there inside the division and one over the Packers, and all of a sudden at the end of the season you're looking at the Vikings on top instead of the Packers. And that's
the Vikings match up with the Packers really well, actually.
Right.
But on paper, right, we haven't seen any of this. But yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won both games even. That's the way I picked it because I'm not going to come out here and say like 11 wins for Super Packers. Like, get out of here, you clown. But I wouldn't be surprised at all, right? It's a game of matchups, and the Vikings, and I don't like that it's at the end of the season because once again, I'm just not confident in the health of this team. Hopefully bringing in some of those Rams health people. Like that kind of, they brought in a few people from the Rams, like kind of, because the Rams have been surprisingly healthy, and that could just be variance, but just in case Kevin O'Connell brought a couple of them over, just in case they got that juice,
Tell you what, we 8 to 11 wins, and I am the 11 wins on the Vikings.
There it is. Yeah.
I think they have what it takes this year. And Grubb, I think you are right. I mean, it is going to be within the division, and I think the Vikings are going to surprise some in the division this year. So speaking of a team, I think they might surprise the Packers, the reigning king of the North, the team that's been there. Hopefully they get knocked off soon. But when we look at the Packers schedule, where do you see them? Like, how many wins do you see them having this year, Lane?
Well, I think I was a little generous. I have them at 14, but I think they, more realistically, around 12. But that Vikings game, and I agree. I am glad that's the first game too. Completely different reason though, because I'm actually at all the games. I hate all the gimmicky stuff that the Vikings do about being in the North and the cold, and so you play in a dome. Stop it.
They do. They do
really?
have.
Do they? I don't go to games, so
Yes, they do actually have fake snow, though. I went to the Bears. Yeah, it's
Jesus.
kind of cool, but
such
it's
a phony franchise, man. In general,
hey,
It's the fake snow. It's the fake snow, and then they have a video of the guys from the 70s, the Purple People Eaters, where they're like, "You'll hear it in the air."
Oh yeah, well, Bud Grant used to make them not wear sleeves. He was like, "No, you don't get heaters." He's like, "No, you don't get sleeves." That's why when the Vikings played the coldest playoff game they've played in 50 years at TCF Bank Stadium, where the college plays, he walked out 90 years old in a golf shirt. Bud Grant. Yeah, they were tough back when they played in the Fed, yes, but that was 50 years ago. Yeah, no, now you just stole the skull chant from Iceland and you call yourself cool. But sorry, I'm slandering my own team.
Well, they have that, and then they have
the Vikings fans.
They have that, and then they have the guys from the 70s being like, yeah, the cold, and we're tough. And it's like, okay, maybe then, guys, but this is now. Stop it.
The guys you're using as an example are about to die, unfortunately.
Pretty much.
Anyway, sorry, I'm done.
So, like I said already, I think that one could potentially be a toss-up because both teams are kind of trying to figure out what they have offensively, defensively, all around. But I have the Packers winning that one as well as beating the Bears on Sunday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers just plays out of his mind against the Bears on primetime games, so might as well keep that up. But then I have them losing at Tampa because it seems like every time they play Tom Brady, aside from 2014, Tom gets his way and Green Bay implodes for some reason. So I have a loss down in Tampa, which I'm really mad that game's early in the season because it's going to be so disgustingly hot down there. Not looking forward to that. But I do have a win against the Patriots at home at Lambeau, a win against the Giants in London. I think Green Bay will kind of look bad again in that one because of the travel. They haven't had to do that in God knows how long. Their last game outside of the U.S. was supposed to be in Winnipeg a couple years ago, but it was a preseason game, so it didn't matter anyways. But before that, I don't even remember the last time they played a game outside.
It's like the closest away game you could possibly have.
Right. I think that one's maybe 12 hours away in Winnipeg, something like that. Yeah. Then a win against the Jets at home, a win against the Commanders in D.C., a loss at the Bills, a win at the Lions, a win against the Cowboys at home in Mike McCarthy's return to Lambeau, a tough, close win against the Titans because I think Derrick Henry will run all over them. The Packers' run defense has been very bad the past few years. They're hoping with Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt and now having Quay Walker paired with Devondre Campbell that they can maybe have a better run defense, but we'll see what happens. As of right now, I think it's still going to be bad, but not bad enough to where they lose that game. Then a win at the Eagles, a win at the Bears, a loss against the Rams at Lambeau. At Dolphins late in the year on Christmas, I think that one's going to be a weird game, but a win for the Packers. They don't seem to play well in Florida later in the year because they're getting used to the cold and then they go down where it's warm. I don't know if that is the reason, but it just doesn't seem to work out very well for them. And if I recall correctly, it might have been the Tampa game and not against the Dolphins, but a few years ago, Rodgers, when they played in Florida late in the year, pulled something in his calf or whatever, and that hindered him for the rest of the year, even though they still played really well. But those weird warm weather games late in the year seem to mess with them.
Interesting. Okay. That's a good insider take right there. That's a great one.
And then wins against the Vikings at home and against the Lions at home to finish the year 14-3. But like I said, I think they could lose a couple other ones there. Like the Patriots one might surprise them because I think Belichick still has a great defense. And so that one could be a potential loss.
Not a lot of options against him either, right? With the offensive weapons, like when you have Adams, at least you're going to force Belichick to take Adams away, right? But now you don't even have to do that, so he just gets to open his full bag of tricks. Like that is a tough matchup if you don't have a depth of weapons.
Exactly. And then that Vikings game at the beginning of the year, I think that could go either way.
We both had them getting swept. Look at that.
So, how many total wins did you say you have?
I had 14.
14. Okay. Grubb, Grubb, what do you say? How many total wins?
Man, that to me, that you look at this schedule and you look what we don't know about the Packers, and I know everybody picks Aaron Rodgers. I look at that schedule, man, and I'm even less excited about the Packers looking at this schedule. That's one of the tough out of the division of what we just saw. I mean, to come out of this schedule,
they get the Bucks and the Bucks and the Titans instead.
But the schedule to come out of that with 14 wins: Rams, Bucks, Titans, and some of these division games, and then at Bills, Cowboys. You never know which Cowboy team you're going to see show up. And again, I mean, Patriots. So to me, it's tough. Obviously, to me, they're 11 or 12 team, or 11 or 12 wins should be manageable out of that schedule. But this is a schedule that if, let's say, Rodgers gets nicked up like he did last year, and they don't have the weapons that they've had in the past, and we're not sure again. Just like Lane said, hey, how does this offensive line look at the beginning of the season? So they slip at the Vikings at the beginning of the season. They lose to the Bucks. They lose to the Patriots. I mean, right there, you're looking at a team that's sitting at 1-3 at the beginning of the season, and you don't know where they end up from there. So again, do I think that they end up not winning this division? They're my division pick, right? So I think that they come through. But this is going to be more interesting season for the Packers than they've had in a long, long time inside this division, like I just said a while ago. And if they start to lose some of these games outside the division, and they have a couple of slip-ups here and there, I don't know. That's what I was saying. That's why you look at the Vikings schedule and you look at this Packers schedule, and that's why I picked the Packers because of Aaron Rodgers, just like everybody else. But the Vikings, with that schedule compared to what the Packers have to go against here, it's tough. It's tough. I mean,
Joseph says, like, who are the Packers passing the ball to? The run game is going to have to come in heavy. You know, Steve-O saying, 11 wins for the Packers here, and it's going to be interesting. Obviously, you have Rodgers. He doesn't throw many interceptions, right? So we have all of this. Right. Everyone wants to pick Rodgers. So I'm going to be a little bit blasphemous here, Lane. And I'm going to, you say 14. I'm going to go the other end of the spectrum. I'm going to say 8.
8 meltdown.
Yes.
That would be the meltdown. But that's, to me,
it'd be catastrophic, really.
To me, and I think Lane would probably agree, that's if you get a banged up Rodgers, and I think most people would agree. I mean, if you get a banged up Rodgers who can't be mobile and can't do his thing, then I could see him, choking a few of these games they shouldn't. But
maybe he misses 3 games, at the wrong time. But yeah,
I have trouble, and Lane's doing what he should do. He's a Packers fan, so he's picking the sky high.
Oh, they haven't won less than 13 games.
Yeah,
for a long time.
So
they also have had Devontae, though, right?
That's true. Their defense was bad before. It's better than it was.
You can't argue that. I mean, when you have a great Hall of Fame quarterback, you're going to pick him to win that many games, and But I just, as a guy, down to earth guy seeing it, I don't think that they get to 14, but I definitely 11-12 should not be a problem for them looking at that schedule. But again, Aaron Rodgers' health is going to be bigger than it's ever been in any season. Especially we've seen what happened when Love has come in for those guys so far. So Aaron, his health is going to be very, 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 very important this season.
And how he gels with those wide receivers, right? Correct. I mean, everyone's, high on those wide receivers because of Rodgers, but, who knows what they really have at tight end? I mean, everyone's like, obviously, anybody could walk in and play tight end and he'd say, oh, we've got a great tight end because of Rodgers. Well, it really depends. I think it's going to be heavily on the running game. They're going to have to, especially early on, right? I mean, if Rodgers is not going to be spending the time, connecting with his wide receivers like he should be, that's going to be an issue.
Or his in-game grudges that he holds against his own teammates and his own receivers and own tight ends. And so you drop a pass and he doesn't come back to you. he doesn't come back to you even if you're standing wide open in the end zone. So he has these in-game grudges where if guys piss him off during the game, regardless of if it goes against him or his team, he will not throw that person the football. So he's proven that. He proved it in the playoff game that they just lost against the 49ers, right? So he has this thing to hold in-game grudges against his own, skill players. And so does he run into a couple of those games where they run into these tough games and he decides he's not going to throw to Tanyan because Tanyan's made some mistakes? And does that cost him a game or two? You don't know what you're going to get from an Aaron Rodgers-led team in some of those situations. So, again, I don't think that they lose a bunch of games. I think 14 is a stretch on the wins, and I think 8 is really a stretch on the losses, and that's just a Bears fan against the Packers. But I can understand.
It is partially, but so like honestly, okay. We'll just kind of go through. I think the Bears is a win. I think Giants is a win. Jets, Commanders 4. I think the Cowboys is a win. 5. Bears another 6. We lost Cooper. So Bears 6. I think I counted the Vikings as a win, and I counted the Lions. So that's my 8 right there. I just think the Rams are going to be tough. Dolphins are going to be tough. So those are my 8. And yes, Aaron Rodgers gets the benefit of the doubt, but when you look at it, I think honestly, and maybe this is slanted as a Bears fan, but when you look at it honestly, do you really know as a Packer fan what they have offensively? Now, maybe defensively they're going to be a lot better, but offensively, that's what is the questions to me. So
their defense should be just as good, if not maybe a little bit better than last year, because they're getting Jair Alexander back, who missed a majority of last year with his shoulder injury, who just signed that big 4-year extension to his contract. And then their draft picks of Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, the linebacker, and the defensive lineman. So hopefully that helps that defense be a little bit better. Now, offensively, like Grubb said, Aaron Rodgers does have those grudges against guys, which is weird. I don't understand it, but he does do it. Makes you wonder, what did Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb do to him? Because I think they combined had 4 or 5 targets in that playoff game, and those are supposed to be your 1 and 2 this year going into the season. So whatever happened, you better figure it out, because you got to throw the ball to those guys. But I think this year, if I had to guess to start the year at least, their wide receiver room is going to be Lazard number 1, Cobb 2, Watkins 3, because they signed Sammy Watkins, Christian Watson at 4, and then depending on how the rest or the bottom end of that wide receiver room shakes out, potentially Malik Taylor or Romeo Doubs at 5. And if they decide to keep a 6th, that whoever is the 5 or whoever isn't the 5 between Malik Taylor and Romeo Doubs is the 6, if they keep 6 guys. Not trying to knock Samari Toure in any way, their 7th round pick, but it's a crowded room because they had a lot of like back end guys in that room last year that are coming back to vie for spots. So we'll see how that shakes out. And of course, your running backs are going to be Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, the 2-headed monster there. And then the number 3 back, that's a toss up between Patrick Taylor and Kylan Hill. It was very obviously Kylan Hill last year, but after tearing his ACL, who knows this year? Tight end is still Mercedes Lewis, Robert Tanyan, and then Davis, I forget what his first name is. Davis was getting reps later in the year.
Snap was asking about Amari Rodgers.
That's
as well.
what I was going to say. What about Amari?
So I don't know what happened to Amari Rodgers throughout the season. He just kind of like didn't do as well as everybody thought. So everybody
honestly disappeared in your mind.
Yeah, everybody just kind of pushed him to the side and forgot about him. So, especially when he wasn't doing very well returning punts and kickoffs like everybody thought he was going to do, and then they started replacing him there. That's especially when everybody kind of pushed him to the side. So, yeah, he'll definitely be in the mix there, but it'll be interesting to see what exactly they do with him.
We'll just kind of, summing everything up, look at division winners. I know Cooper had to go uneducated takes, and it looks like it's almost a sweep across the board. Everyone with the Packers, but I am going with the Vikings this year. I think the Vikings are going to surprise, and that also unfortunately lines up with Colin Cowherd as well.
Boo.
Well, if anybody else is going to do it aside from the Packers, I think it would be the Vikings. And, if the Packers end up not being able to figure out what they've got going and they do slip a little bit, the Vikings could very easily take ahead and be that team to win the division, surprisingly.
Yeah, when you look at this, I mean, any possibility that maybe the Lions would sneak in there?
Again, it's going to take it. How does the division play out?
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, again, the Lions have a chance to have a very good season based off their schedule outside the division. So if the Lions sneak a couple of win, like if they snuck a win against the Packers and snuck a win against the Vikings, and then sweep the Bears, I mean that's 4-2 in the division. So, I mean, could it be? It could be at the end of the season that they have a chance. Do they do it? I seriously doubt it. But again, this is the first season that they actually can be brought up in that conversation, in the question, and it's a reach, but it's actually somewhere they could actually be. So that's pretty cool.
Well, this has been a great episode. I definitely appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you joining us. Lane, where can everyone find you again?
I see my Twitter handle scrolling across the bottom there, lhankins4. So give me a follow on there. Shoot me DMs if you got any questions. I'm glad to answer them. I'm here in Green Bay and work with the team, so I got all the answers. Hopefully.
Awesome.
Love it. And where can everyone find you again, Grubb?
Gridiron Grubb. Find me on Twitter at Gridiron Grubb. You can find me here, obviously weekly, Freezin 4. My podcast, Gridiron Grubb, will be starting out soon again, coming up here. Find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all of the podcast areas there. And other than that, look for me here because this is one of my favorite spots to be.
Absolutely. And Cooper, you can find him on Uneducated Takes. I think he had to drop off and attend to some Vikings Twitter business probably. And I am NFL Outdated. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube. And thanks again, guys. And I'm ready for the season. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, yeah. I'm done talking about nothing.
It was so fun being back at rookie minicamp. Was that 2 weeks ago now? So just can't wait for the off-season programs to keep rolling and being out there with the guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. Once again, it's been Freezin 4 NFC North Podcast, episode number 22, and we'll catch you again hopefully next week.
Good night, guys.